Hi everyone, my name's Claire. I'm from the Birchal team. Welcome so much to today's webinar. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land from which I am zooming in from and where Birchal's mainly based. It is the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin nation. I'd like to pay my respects to their elders, past, present and future. And it is my absolute delight today to be joined by the team at Floraly, Tristian, Alec and Stefan. Thank you so much for joining me today. Welcome to the webinar.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Everyone, the way that today is going to play out, we're going to have a bit of about a 10 to 15 minute Q&A with the Floraly team to learn a little bit more about the company, how it started, basically what they're looking to raise the capital for, and any other questions that we have in terms of their journey to date. And then we're going to open up to a Q&A from the audience. So if you've got any questions, please use the Q&A chat bot below. Do not use the chat bot, please use the Q&A bot. I will be preferencing the Q&A bot over the chat bot for those questions. But yeah, hold on to your questions until the end, or if you've got them that you'd like to pepper in as we go, we'll get on to them really soon. But guys, over to you. Tell me a little bit more about Floraly, what it is, what it does, how it started, and most importantly, how you three got involved in the business.
A lot of questions in one, in one sentence. Well, I'll give you a bit of a snapshot about how it started. Stefan and I founded Floraly as part of Idea Crunch, which is a kind of parent startup accelerator that we have. We really focused on this business because we'd seen huge success of companies overseas like Kulin Wild in the UK doing this same business model in the flower industry. And things have been changing a lot internationally, but it hadn't changed so much in Australia. And so, you know, we saw an opportunity not just from the business perspective to make a big impact, but also on consumers, because, you know, I think a lot of people's experiences in flowers in Australia has been lackluster sometimes and inconsistent at the very least. So we really wanted to bring in technology and make a huge impact in the industry here. So that's why we got started. Yeah, and
cool. I guess then I came on board kind of after we've been going for just under a year, I think it was, and I was so excited by the opportunity in Australia to grow this business. And you know, when I looked at Bloom and Wild, which I already used to send my mum flowers in the UK, I thought this was a great opportunity to do something similar in Australia. So yeah.
How would you describe our kind of our business and what we do, and what's your little nutshell pitch?
Well, yeah, for me, and this is what really came, I don't see us as a flower company or a flower gifting company. I see us as a joy company. And the fact we do it with flowers is really nice because they're joyful. But essentially what we're aiming to do is to make it as easy and convenient as possible for people to send joy to the people they care most about. And that's what we're on a mission to do. Oh, sounds good.
Classic.
Yeah.
So you were talking a bit more about some of the issues in the flower gifting industry. You know, I don't know much about this industry at all, apart from the fact that, you know, it gets to Mother's Day, I wake up, forget that I'm supposed to buy mum flowers and have a mild panic attack. Can you talk a little bit more about what some of the issues are in the industry and what you're setting out to solve with Floraly?
So I guess first of all, it's a pretty large industry. So the kind of flower industry alone is $1 billion industry in Australia, and then the gifting industry on top of that is,
I think it's circa 20 billion in Australia.
Yeah, circa 20. That's a huge industry. There's been a whole lot of waste in that industry thus far. A lot of, especially going back to flowers, about 1 in 3 flowers die before reaching the end consumer. So that's mainly caused by large inefficiencies in the supply chain. Florists often have to pre-buy a whole lot of stock and then, you know, hope that it sells, and often it doesn't. So we're kind of changing that business model. We source our flowers after an order has been placed. So we're never holding any more stock than we need to, and we're able to cut down on flower waste by about 90%.
Yeah. And I think kind of looking historically at the industry and the way it's evolved, you know, if you think before the internet, the only way you get flowers was from a local florist. And then along came the kind of telephone flower companies like Interflora that would basically take calls, you ring them up, say, I want to send flowers somewhere, and they forward that order onto a local florist, which kind of made sense back then. But then when the advent of the internet came along, that didn't really change. And so you still have often, you know, the biggest suppliers in Australia are these amalgamators, kind of like the Expedias of the flower industry, where you place an order with them, they just send it on to somebody else, take a huge cut, which inflates the price. And, you know, Stefan said, it means that all these flowers have to sit around in a store just hoping to be ordered, which ends up in a lot of waste.
Yeah, and we've used technology to build an automatic ordering system. So when the orders come in, it calculates and works out exactly what we need for those orders for the day and automatically orders them from the different suppliers. So it really streamlined that kind of process and makes it easier. And obviously, we don't have a retail store, like you said, so we don't have a stock. So we order, and by the end of the week, I'm lucky if I get flowers to take home to my partner because we sell everything, which is a great thing.
So tell me a bit more about the supply chain. And so it's direct to farmer that you get the flowers from, or people who grow the flowers? Are they mainly based in Australia? Are you getting flowers from overseas? Like how does that work in terms of how it works Floraly?
We source our flowers from a whole range of different suppliers. And, as we grow, our mission is actually to try and source more and more from farms. And part of my role is going out and looking for these new suppliers to kind of source local produce. So really, it's quite a complicated supply chain, and we're trying to work out ways to kind of make sure that we're supporting Australian farms and ordering more flowers from Australia. In some cases, we do have flowers that do come from overseas, where we have to, like at Valentine's or times like that, where there simply aren't enough supply of certain types of flowers for us to be able to source them locally in Australia. And also seasonality is an important factor in terms of what we can get and what we can source. But as we grow, we're trying to make sure that we really focus on selling what is seasonal and what is available at that time of year.
And to give some kind of context to the long-term vision of how we'd like to see this play out, part of the reason why so it is a huge proportion of flowers in general in Australia that are imported versus grown locally. And that's because it's quite unaffordable to grow the flowers in Australia compared to competing to companies overseas, with farms overseas. And that's because there are so many mouths to feed, so to speak, between the actual farms and the end consumer. When you've got a typical imported flower will go from wherever it's grown in, say, South America, 70% of, I think, all the world's flowers and plants go through Holland. So it goes through Holland where it's physically auctioned off. So the auctioneers take a cut, the importers take a cut, it gets here, it goes to a wholesaler who takes a cut, it then goes through the amalgamator, which takes a cut, and then goes to the florist who takes a cut, and then gets to the end consumer, which means that it's incredibly inefficient. And even with that process, it's hard for Australian farms to compete. And I think that if you want more locally purchased flowers, what you need is to consolidate a lot of that. So what we want to do and have a single brand that's sourcing flowers, in the future, even if we can, growing our own flowers in Australia, doing that all locally. And because we can sell directly to consumers, we take out all those costs in the middle, which hopefully will allow us to do much, much more local sourcing as we grow.
Yeah, it's so exciting and fantastic. And like me, I had no idea about even going through Holland, like from South America before it gets to Australia.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Crazy to think. I'm like, how did flowers possibly survive that long? And then they don't. What is it? 1 in 3 flowers don't survive that journey. So where are you guys based then? And where did your operations sort of start? And where has it grown to?
So we're based right here in Sydney, so in Alexandria. So currently we distribute out of this warehouse. And in the future, and in the very near future, and part of this investment is about that, we want to expand our distribution centres to other states across Australia. So whilst we still ship overnight to those states, we want to, people are very last minute in the flower world and the gifting world. So we want to be able to provide a more seamless experience and be able to deliver quicker to any state within Australia moving forward.
Amazing. So then most of your growers at the moment are all New South Wales based, so they can get to that distribution centre?
No, they do vary. They go across all sorts of places. Even our little Christmas trees, for example, come from a nursery in Victoria, probably not too far from where you are. Sunflowers come from Queensland generally. They can come from northern New South Wales sometimes, but it really is, because of weather, it really depends on where they come from. A lot of natives come from WA or Victoria as well. So.
Yeah, amazing. Well, it sounds very exciting to get a few more distribution centres out in the country, because I imagine you can get it to customers even faster from there.
Yeah.
I'd love to know a bit more about your customers and your sales journey to date. So you guys have really only been going for 2 years. Now, what is it? It's over 40,000 orders already, or some incredible number. Tell us a bit more about that growth that you've seen. Has it spiked during COVID? Who are the people that are mostly buying these flowers? Are you having repeat orders? What's your customer base like? Because it seems like this thing's just really taken off. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's been an incredible journey. The stat we've got is 862% growth year on year, August to August last year, which is phenomenal. We're on track. September is going to be another fantastic month for us. A lot of our customers are, they're trying to send that joy, show that they care to people that they're not physically close to. So it might be someone in Sydney trying to send flowers to their mum in Victoria, or it might be someone in the UK trying to send flowers to someone in Sydney. Yeah. So,
but I think, it's like our customers are very wide ranging, and they, I think that it's a different experience with us because, traditional flowers often arrive open and all in bloom. Ours come, I like to call it like flat packed to some extent. So you send out your flowers, you receive them in bud because we order them the same day that, we order them straight after you order them. And then you get the experience, and we have a manual that comes in our little bespoke box that allows you to kind of create the bouquet the way you want to create it. So it's a bit more of an experience than just a gift. And that's what, people are really taking up and loving, because they, especially in COVID as well, because they actually get to do something when they get the flowers and, have a bit of fun with it, maybe a glass of wine.
And there's a bit of an education piece here as well, because the way flowers are usually purchased from florists, they need to be really open for you to kind of get that, oh my God, wow factor. But the reality is, if you're buying them fully open, they're going to die in 3 days.
Yeah.
And so, what we have kind of been working with our customers to teach them is that we're able to actually send these flowers in bud, so you get to see them bloom in your home, which means they'll be there and they'll last, weeks rather than days. And I think that makes a big difference, and that's part of the model that's been pioneered overseas, that we really focus on here, and that kind of goes hand in hand with the idea of freshness and longevity.
Yeah, and part of the thing is, there is a place for open flowers, and our flowers do get to open, but obviously we don't have retail stores, and we also don't do weddings or events where, everything needs to be open up for that moment. Whereas we're more about you having them at home, arranging them yourself, and then seeing the full life cycle from bud right through to bloom, and getting that enjoyment over a period of time. So I think that's, people seem to love that experience.
Yes. And to kind of answer your question about who our customers are, it's an interesting one, actually. I think necessarily because we've got the eco focus of our business, which matters to us a lot personally. We found a lot of young adopters of the company, a lot of millennials to begin with, but increasingly we're seeing, and we've really purposely positioned our brand in such a way that it's not too cool, so to speak, because we want to appeal to a large audience. We know that's where we can have the greatest impact in terms of spreading joy around to Australians, and also where we can have the greatest financial impact in the market. And so that's very purposeful on our part to make sure we are able to appeal to a wide range of demographics.
Yeah, and like one of our products, which is interesting, is the subscription model as well, whereby people actually subscribe to send their mum flowers every single month, for example. I actually did this in the UK with Bloom and Wild to my mum, and it's a set and forget, become the favourite son forever kind of thing. And we've seen that a lot going on, that people are sending subscriptions to their parents or whatever for over a longer period of time, which is great.
And I actually know of a few people who work in business that, for whatever reason, in their reception desks or in their offices, they need to have fresh flowers quite often for the aesthetic there. So I can imagine the subscription service like that into a B2B model is also actually, very, very incredible. I want to know a little bit more about the ethos and sustainability and the purpose behind Floraly. Now, I understand you guys have got some really exciting partnerships with other organisations in Australia. Can you tell me a little bit more about them?
Yeah, I think one of our partnerships, one of the partnerships I'm most proud of is our partnership with Oz Harvest that we've had since the beginning. And every kind of bouquet that we sell buys a flower for someone in need.
Buys a meal.
A flower wouldn't go very far. Buys a meal for someone in need, which is super cool. And I think today, so we've probably supplied around 20,000 meals to
probably 30 more, probably about nearly 40,000.
Exactly.
And every quarter when we talk to them, they send us back a little thing saying, you've helped X number of people, and it's great. And we always set out, like we said, to become a joy company, but our mission really is to become Australia's most loved, most sustainable, and also socially aware flower gifting company. We think it's really important for all of us three. We're doing a bit to give back as well as creating a great business.
I think just in general, we've spoken about this before personally. I mean, starting businesses is obviously a profit motive there for doing it. And I think we believe really strongly in the future prospects of this business financially, but also I'm not personally interested in starting a company that's going to have negative impacts on the world. So I want to do something that can actually help and be better than what's came before. So that's important to us.
Yeah.
And it would be incredible in the future, I imagine, as well, if you guys can, in that sustainability vein, almost track the carbon miles of your flowers and almost, as opposed to the flight from South America to Holland to Australia to Sydney to the person.
It'd be amazing. Yeah.
You can just go boom, boom, carbon.
Exactly.
Yeah. Fantastic. So I'm really interested because, I mean, obviously when we have touched base in the past leading up to your campaign, Mondays at Floraly HQ, a crazy day. What's sort of the current, mass order volume you guys can hit? And do you basically have a moment at the moment where you really need to grow because you can't do any more orders, or what are you typically seeing coming through?
Great question.
Yeah, it's a great question.
Well, we just moved off.
This is our new warehouse. So we literally moved here on Friday night because after the orders are done from the other place, so we worked late into the night to get all the stuff and over, and so we were ready for a huge Monday, which it was yesterday. We've hired a new operations manager, Matt, who's come in to take over a lot of that day-to-day running, which has really been great. I think Monday was a big one for him with everything being a bit in different places. He looked a bit stressed at the end of the day, but everything went out and was great, and it takes a massive load off me as well, which means I can focus on some of the other things that I'm doing at the moment. So but I think we've always found, we've been able to scale, and we find it exciting that, seeing that huge growth and learning from, we're not perfect, we've made errors, we've made mistakes, but we always try and make sure that the customer's first and that they're all, always happy with what we do, because in the end, our business is all about happy customers. So
it's been an interesting the last 2 months or so, actually, because we kind of capped out in our old space. We were doing, I think on a busy day, maybe 600 orders a day, and we just had to turn the ads off. When we recently hired a head of marketing to complement our head of operations, Matt, who came on board. So Jane, who's our head of marketing, came on about 2 months ago. And unfortunately for her, we just had to say, you got to stop. We physically can't do it. So now that we're in the new space as of this week, we're excited to turn things up
because we max the space out. I think the people who that rent the space to us were like, you've got to get out of the bigger space, because we're
Please go away.
It's going to be exciting to see what we can do with a lot more room and a lot more operational changes that allow us to operate later into the afternoon and on weekends.
And also, we currently don't do weekends or evenings, so that's our next focus, is to expand the times that we are able to deliver flowers.
Get your coffee cup, and imagining that's probably the 5th coffee of the day, the new space.
Something like that,
Oh, huge. Well, guys, I mean, that probably segues really nicely into, this capital raise. So clearly it's just going off chops, which is absolutely fantastic. And the data that we're seeing coming through your expression of interest campaign is incredible. So many people are signing up that want to express interest to invest in this company. I'm really keen to know, you've touched on it really briefly, but what are you looking to raise funds for, and what do you think the next sort of 6 to 12 months holds for Floraly?
Yeah, I think, we've already touched on the expansion side of things, moving our distribution centres into other states, and I think that's really important, and this will help us do that quicker. I think on the other side, the technology side, one from the customer's perspective, like we're looking at ways that we can bind people to our kind of gifting infrastructure. So, looking at building, iOS and Android apps so that effectively we create a gifting partner for you that will, prompt you when you have a birthday or, Mother's Day or whatever important event, so you never forget. It may even be able to be set up to automatically order. But essentially, it's all about making it as easy as possible and enjoyable as possible for you to send, joy to the people that you love. And I think that's a really big part of it. I think other stuff is on the supply side, improving the tech in the way that we source and supply flowers, more predictive technology to understand what's seasonal, even looking at weather and stuff like that. That's probably further off than this investment, but looking at how we can best do that. And also then going back to that, remembering what customers like to buy, and then making suggestions to them that are appropriate for what they like and what they like to send to particular people. And I think that will be a big part of this.
I think the technology part's really interesting because
Yeah.
when you look at a kind of base level, supplying flowers is not particularly difficult. It's relatively easy to set up an online store and sell flowers or become a florist. But the difference between supplying just some flowers and doing an amazing job at it, it's a lot of small improvements, and that's what we want to use technology for. It's getting all of those tiny improvements in the supply chain, all those tiny improvements in the way that things are priced and products are automated on the website, and all of those things together, I think will really add up to become an incredibly competitive edge for our business over other companies. And that's one of the great things about having Tristian on board. I mean, you were CEO of GoGet for what, 8 years?
Yeah, nearly 9 years.
So Tristian spent a lot of his career working with technology and figuring out innovative ways to use it. And I think that's really what's going to help us as a business stand out from everyone else, in the coming however long.
Exactly. And I think the other thing is people. So, and that is in this investment looking, for me, great businesses are all about great people. And, we've seen the great impact that's happened from hiring our latest 2 hires. We want to look, the next big hire for us is a buyer, is someone who goes out there and sources new farms on the ground. One, it's great because we'll be able to find flowers from local farms that are closer. 2, pricing wise, we think we can, really look at those margins within our business and start to benefit from that going forward. And, other areas, are definitely technology, whether it be a CTO developers, but, UX type stuff to help improve the kind of customer experience and improve conversion rates. Whilst we already have a great one, there's always, ways that we can really improve that. So.
On the kind of note of people, it's something we've had a lot of conversations about in our team is values.
Yeah.
For us, if we really want it to be our vision to become Australia's most loved flower company, which we do, we really think we need to internalize those beliefs and values. We need to make sure that as people, we genuinely care about each other, because if we all do that internally, that will reflect out to our customers. So we want to make sure that we're really considered in who we hire, make sure that they're the kind of people that love and care about others and that want to make people happy ultimately. Because if you want to make people happy, then that means that as you pack that order of flowers or as whatever you're working on in our business, you're going to care about the outcome. You're going to care about the person that receives that. And that's what's going to make us successful, I think.
Yeah, it's so exciting. And I love hearing that about your ethos and your plans for expansion, even in the tech space. I mean, you're talking about, a great company with great values. You mentioned before educating customers a little bit more in terms of flowers that they're buying, what's in season, and sort of guiding them on that buying journey as well. But I also see it as super exciting that your technology potentially have a 2-way conversation. Not only are you telling customers sort of what's in season, what's good to buy, things like that, but I also imagine to the growers as well, you'll be able to give them much richer insights into who's buying flowers, what's going well, not just sales figures, but actually, trends in the market to help them with their own, production of flowers as well. So
absolutely.
Really cool ecosystem that you guys are building. I think it's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, and getting, I was talking to a farmer just last week about some trees, and, looking at ways, and he's actually looking at actually growing trees for us going forward in the future, and varieties that potentially aren't in Australia or available in Australia. So that in the future, we think having great relationships with farmers will enable us to kind of influence what we're going to have in 1, 2, 3 years' time to sell to our customers. So I'm really excited about that opportunity.
Incredible. I've got 2 more questions from me, and then we've got over 10 questions from the audience, which is very exciting, and we'll hop on in a moment. I'm really interested to know a little more about your competitors in this market. So, is it florists? Is it other gifting companies? Who do you see, if the goal for the customer is to spread joy and to get that special gift to someone they love, who do you see as your main competitors in the Australian market at the moment?
So I don't think we're competing with local florists. That's quite a different segment. We're really competing, I guess, mostly with those big online flower companies, FTP, Interflora, who have been the ones that have been dominating that, sending flower space. And then it is, as we grow, it's going to competitors that are in the hamper business or in other gifting space start to become competitors.
I do think it is the broader gifting market. We're solely online. We don't have retail shops. We're not really competing with the retail when you pop down and buy some flowers to take somewhere. It's a different thing. But I think we're competing with anyone who wants to send something, to someone else without, when they can't can't actually be there. And so that really expands into the gifting. And we're, at the moment, you've probably even seen on our website, we've been adding a whole host of different new products from like Mr. Consistent, which is like, you know, make your own cocktails at home, etc. But we're looking at other things as well, like how can we broaden that gifting market and send some really exciting things to so basically you don't have to go anywhere else. If you need to send a gift to someone, you know, we're there.
Do you know what I'm particularly excited about? This may not be in the plan, but this is a feature request if you can do it in the app. The giving me the nudge to buy the flowers for an upcoming birthday with enough time that actually gets to the person. That would be next level, because I'd be like, oh yes, as you say, favorite child, boom, flowers. Oh mum, flowers, aren't they lovely? Huge, as you go there for lunch, because otherwise you rock up with like Safeway flowers or Woolworths flowers, sorry, and you're like, oh my god, sorry, they're
and we've got some other cool little things that we're working on. Some are tech based. I can't talk about them yet, but that will we're trying to put the wow in it, in how you communicate with the people you love, you know, most or care about most. So the stuff that really kind of binds you to our business so that you come back and use us again.
Yeah, fantastic. Last question I have for you guys before I turn it over to the audience, and heads up, the questions will be pretty randomized, so I'll just go through what first came through and go down to the end. The question I have for you is on potential return on investment. So obviously in these campaigns, people are investing, they're investing their money, they're hoping to make a return. And I'm very aware, and I want to make it clear to everyone in the audience, that under a crowdsourced funding regime that Birchal operates under as the intermediary, you will have access to the company constitution, to a subscription agreement, and to an offer document, which will include all the terms and rights associated with your shares. It will include the most recent 12 months of financial statements from the company, information about the company, what they want to use the funds for, who's in the team, existing shareholders, all the information you need to know. However, what we can't actually put into these documents as a requirement of ASIC is projected financial statements or forecasts on revenue, or basically any guarantee of a return on this investment, because it is a high risk speculative investment to invest in an early stage private company. That being said, and laying the foundations there in terms of what we can and can't talk about, obviously the Floraly team, you have hopes and dreams of where this company will go one day. And although you can't talk about it in terms of revenue, do you potentially see, what is your goal for an exit for Floraly? Is it to pay dividends eventually? Is it to sell to a larger competitor or an international company? Is it to float on the IPO? Like, what are your initial thoughts now, or are you not really looking at that yet?
Yes. Because in terms of size, if it's a question, you know, and not a forecast. So I'm looking at companies overseas like Bloom and Wild. They, I think very quickly within something like 7 years, were the biggest single, I think, I mean, it's right, supplier online of flowers in the UK. And so, but that happened very fast just because of these business models, this business model that we're using as well. And so that, in terms of size, would be our goal. I think we'd all agree we want to pay dividends as, you know, as soon as the company's sustainable. And it's one of the good things about our business is there's not a huge investment in stock. You know, because we're getting the flowers and sourcing them largely after people have ordered, we don't have to put all this money up front. It's that, you know, we waste way less. Well, I think our waste is just about 3% compared to around 30% than a lot of other flower companies. So have all these benefits that mean that, you know, we don't have to invest hugely in things. There'll be tech and there'll be investments in team and people and growth there. But I think we're going to be able to get to the point where we're paying dividends a lot faster than your average inventory-based company would.
Yeah, fantastic. Well,
sorry, I was going to say, I've said it before, but you know, our mission, whilst we want to become huge, it's about becoming Australia's most loved flower gifting company, and therefore, staying true to our ideally that's the biggest. But if it's not, it's not. But you know, that's really important. We want people to love the experience of using our business, and we think that will follow through to an exit in whichever form it comes. We're not directly thinking of what that exact exit will be, but we think we will create a fantastic business that everybody will want to use and probably everybody will want to own in the future. But that's my opinion.
Yeah, and I think it's exciting from hearing you talk as well. Like it truly is a business that's adding value from what I can hear. It's not just, we're just selling flowers and that's it. It's an e-commerce company just trying to get more stuff into the world, like your commentary around understanding better where the flowers are coming from, reducing those carbon miles, giving back to companies like Ob Harvest, making it clearer for people to understand when to buy flowers and actually getting a lot more information on what's working, what's not in this industry. Like, I see that as a real value add. So I think it's incredibly exciting, and hopefully you guys will, bloom yourselves.
That's the idea, exactly.
I'd love to hop to some of our investor questions now.
Yeah.
We've got just under 20 that have come through, which is really exciting. If we don't get to all your questions in today's session, I will save them and send them to the team, and then we'll be able to get back to you. But we will also put in our contact details, both for Birchal and for the Floraly team as well. So this is not the end of the conversation if we don't get through all the questions. The first question: who makes up the bunches for dispatch to customers? Do you guys manage that process, or is that done? Is that outsourced, the actual making up of the bunches?
No, it's all in house. Our lead florist, Leah, is in charge of that.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's all done here. You have to admit at the beginning, I think back 2 years ago, it might have been some of these people that started doing it, but essentially now it's Leah and her team as well, who also have involvement. It passes through marketing as well, so there's a kind of process of approval, but it's all done in-house, all of our business. Yeah.
Can you reveal what percentage of your flowers are imported from overseas at the moment?
It depends on the season.
It's a tough one to have an exact number.
Good question though.
But it's a good question. So,
like, all of our sunflower-based bouquets, native bouquets, are all sourced locally. Alstro, lilies,
Just be like roses,
which we aren't the biggest seller of roses. It isn't our biggest part of our business, but they, particularly around certain times of the years, do come in from overseas. Yeah. We do also in our brides sell local, even New South Wales roses. We've had them in, I think it's in this bright or the one before, the florist pick. But as an exact percentage, I don't have the number, but I would reckon it's lower than normal, like than other suppliers. But I can't say. The
problem is that all our bouquets are, are mixed bouquets of designs of flowers from lots of different places. Honestly, I couldn't tell you, but I would have to guess it's definitely below 50%, given the volume of, I'd say way below. I don't know exactly what it is.
And it depends every single day. It's a tough one we don't know. Yeah.
I've got a question about same order delivery. If you purchase stock as orders come in, how does this work with the idea of same day delivery when there is no lead time?
So we don't do a lot of same day delivery at the moment. So essentially you order today if you're in Sydney, and we will get those flowers and send them to you tomorrow. So whilst the delivery is the same day, so we get them and we have them tomorrow, and then they're sent out the same day to you. We do also order, but only in very limited stock, certain varieties like sunflowers and natives that can be sold same day, but every day we're sold out before 12 o'clock because we actually under order. So yes,
it's a great question in general, because I think it's important to note in terms of the evolution of our business. So when we started out, it was all sourcing 100% of everything after you ordered it from us. And that initially took us 2 days before we could get it to a customer. So it was at least 48 hours before you could actually get anything delivered. The kind of purpose of that business model really is to reduce waste in our business. And so our goal ultimately is to keep waste under 3%, because I think that is, by industry standards, incredibly good. And so what we want to do with the technological side of things is build out more of the algorithmic processes for ordering and predicting what kind of flower orders are going to come through in the future, but then also reshuffling products on our website so that if we have an excess of things that contain alstro, for example, or sunflowers, and those products are going to get put further up. So that way, no matter as we grow, we're able to move more and more into the same day side of things while keeping true to that, less than 3% waste in our business. Yeah. So it is a good question. And ultimately, you're right. If we do more and more same day stuff, we won't be able to source everything straight after you've ordered, but we will be able to still keep to that less than 3% waste by working more on the technology side of things.
And same day right now, I mean, there is an opportunity there without a doubt, but makes up such a teeny percentage of our business. It's almost, it's 1-2%. So there is a massive opportunity to get that right and do that more. But at the moment, if you order, typically you're going to get the flowers tomorrow.
Yeah, and I think it's the same with, we spoke to the CEO of Bloom and Wild last year, and he'd said that even for them in the UK, when they're doing 11,000 orders a day, same day is a really small proportion of that. And part of the reason why is because there's an education piece there again with our customers saying, these are our values, we care about reducing waste. And so it's more important to us to be able to get you flowers tomorrow and keep waste low than it is to be able to, be incredibly convenient at your, absolute whim. There's a balance to be found there, but I think for us, as long as we keep educating our customers on that piece, they'll know in the future that if they want flowers from us, some stuff won't be available tomorrow. And I think as we get kind of further into designing individual bouquets sourced in different parts of Australia, it may be that if you want that bouquet, you can only order it from a certain day next week until a couple of days later, or whatever it might be. As long as we're kind of sticking to our values of reducing waste, that's the most important part. Yeah.
And look, there's also even a potential, partnership network opportunity there. It's almost like, if you can't order it same day through us, here's some of our preferred partners that you could, contact until you get to the point that you are doing same day delivery as well. So you're, bringing in other players in the market into that potentially, which is
something we thought about. Or offer different product lines that, that's why moving into hampers, for example, is a good idea. It's stuff that can kind of keep around for longer. There's lots of different ways to deal with that. I think you'd also be surprised how many people, although they want to place the order right now, it's not necessarily that it needs to be for today. Yeah. And so we find it's like when we have to block a day out because
they just go for the next day.
They just go to the next day, so because of our capacity. Something most people will just order for the next day.
And the odd, birthday, but once we design our app and it reminds you're never going to forget in advance anyway. So the whole idea is to educate people to do that. Like if I refer to Bloom and Wild, I send flowers to my mum a lot there, just because I am originally British, and other people I know do. So to where my mum is, you definitely can't send the same day. But I just wait and I order in advance. It even reminds me when it's time for her birthday or whatever, and I just do it in advance. And sometimes it's with them, it's even 2-3 days, crazily, but people still seem to order. So. Yeah.
Do you have a method at the moment in which you track your road and air miles of the flowers, or is that in the works for sort of future of the technology of Floraly?
We don't currently. We do our best to offset our carbon emissions. It's quite a complicated process, like you said, through air miles. It's very complicated. It's something we're working on. So at the moment, it's really just our best estimates.
Yeah, and baby steps at the time as well. I mean, you guys are still an incredibly young company, only 2 years old. You're nailing getting the flowers from the growers to your customers, and then all these cool, additions to the company of what pretty much is capital raising for to be able to extend that. Someone's asked if you've got a timeline in mind for new distribution centres, but I imagine that would be based on the amount of capital you can raise, or can you tell me a bit more about that?
So based on COVID
it's been, we were already thinking of Melbourne, for example, like now, or actually probably a few weeks ago, but obviously COVID has stopped that. So we think that the timeline certainly for Victoria, it is in the next 6 months, it'd probably be most easily just because of the business after Christmas, but we've even thought potentially before Christmas. And then obviously
Queensland as well.
Queensland, Brisbane fairly quickly after that, depending on the raise. I think Queensland, this investment will help us to go to Brisbane much quicker than we would have otherwise done so. Yeah.
And that's the point of these capital raises as well. It's not to, if you don't raise the capital, the business can't proceed. It's just shortening those lead times. You would
absolutely
work anyway, but by raising the capital now, you're making what might be a 2-year process into a 6-month process.
That's exactly the reason for the funding. We actually had a long thought and did some modelling, and do we need to raise funds, because we are profitable and self-funding and can grow the business without taking on funds, but we felt that this capital would help us to accelerate that faster and to achieve what we want, all three of us want to achieve in our mission, quicker and more effectively. So that's, really why we're doing it.
Fantastic. I believe this next question is from a customer, but I'll put it out, and maybe it's not, but anecdotally, I know Floraly have had a lot of traction from special offerings like the Christmas trees, and that's a little bit different from the typical gifting of a bouquet. What is the split of sales between these special purchases like Christmas trees versus the traditional bouquet purchases? If you guys can tell us a bit more about that, what you're seeing as trends in.
It's pretty small now.
Relatively,
I think
sold about 3,000 Christmas trees last year. And to give you an idea, where we're selling about 2,000 bouquets a week right now. So those 3,000 Christmas trees in the whole of the end of last year.
But that point last year, it was a big jump. It was big, relatively. But now it pales in comparison with the number of flower orders that we're kind of getting. So we'll see what happens this Christmas, but if we can even get enough trees, because, you know, they take 3 years to grow. So, but, you know, we've got some other ideas as well for what we're going to do this year.
I think one way to think about those kind of special offerings like Christmas trees is they're fantastic ways to get brand awareness, you know, to get small capital injections, definitely, but it's really about getting that awareness and at the end of the day, driving people to our core business, which is flowers. So
yeah, but I still think they have a place, and you know, in the future we're going to look towards plants and other things that we can add to that gifting world. And you know, the Christmas tree, I love the Christmas tree, and people love it. So, and the amount of people that rave about getting the tree last year, it definitely put a big smile on my face. So we'll keep doing them for a while.
Another question that's come through is, how much do you expect the flower and gifting industries to grow in Australia over the next 10 years? How much of this market do you expect to capture on during the same period, considering you don't cater to weddings and other such large events?
I think I actually know the stat on this. I think the compound annual growth rate of online flowers is 8.5% in Australia. So you have to do the compound maths on that over the course of the next 10 years. But, you know, I think that means about doubles in size in the next decade. Yeah,
and the gifting, that's without the gifting. So
that's right.
And flowers, which would,
and then there's been that huge shift towards e-commerce, everything moving online, which has just accelerated massively throughout COVID as well. So,
and I think COVID has helped people find e-commerce as well. You know, well, because you know, stuck at home and you didn't used to order gifts online, but now you've found how easy it is to do so. And if you've had a great experience with one of the companies that you've used, it's quite likely, I think, that you will return and use that service again. So, you know, it's I guess a silver lining to, you know, what's been a hard time, locked up.
I've got a logistics and supply chain question. I love these ones. Logistics supply chain businesses of any sort is fraught with all sorts of unsustainable practices. The boxes and the packages, plastics used in the packaging, etc. What specifically is Floraly doing? I know we spoke a little bit about carbon miles already, but what specifically is Floraly doing to track, monitor, and reduce their carbon footprints in the delivery of the goods?
Yeah, that's a good question. To be honest, by this stage, we haven't had those big discussions with our suppliers. We haven't had the purchasing power to kind of enact those big changes. As we start to grow, and we're having more, you know, like we're having bigger discussions with suppliers around our specific requirements. So one of the easiest ones to solve is stop sending us these flowers wrapped in plastic. Like we just don't want the plastic that comes with them. Send them in, you know, a big cardboard box. So there's a whole range of those initiatives that we want to push through, and it's something that we will have to continue working on over the next, you know, over the next few months and years.
Yeah, and I do feel as, you know, as a small player, it's harder to have any influence over suppliers, but as we grow bigger, and certainly if I refer to Bloom and Wild, I know they have huge impact on their suppliers who grow flowers specifically for them, pick them at the right time. So when we get to that level of scale, I feel, you know, whether we even grow flowers ourselves one day or through a partner, that we will be able to do a lot more. We're trying to do our bit as well as we can, you know, with reducing the flower waste and, you know, having everything that we've got, you know, that we send out ideally being recyclable, etc., trying to eliminate plastics, etc., from any of our packaging, but we could definitely do better, and that's our mission, is to do so.
One of the interesting things I think is that suppliers like this, you know, farmers, for example, they, you know, they're not looking to innovate constantly to like find new packaging solutions. For them, it's kind of like, well, they've always put flowers in, you know, whatever plastic wrap or these particular boxes to send them out. And I think a big part for us will be finding ways to innovate and say to them, hey, here's an alternative for you that you can use, because nobody else is doing that in the industry, because no one else either cares or is big enough to make the effort. So, you know, it's something we've actually, you know, particularly the flowers being wrapped in plastic, often something we've discussed a lot and something that we really need to find an alternative for. But it's discussions that we have internally quite frequently.
And a question's popped up as well, which is relevant to this, about as you expand your product range, do you have current or planned vetting processes in place to ensure that any supplementary products that you might have in the broader Floraly gifting universe, let's say like beauty masks or chocolate, whatever, are also supplied by companies that meet your waste and other sustainability values? Or is that in the roadmap to create that framework before you go to new partners?
Yeah, that's That's a good question. I think we look at it through the lens of sustainability. We don't have any specific policies or procedures in place at this point. I think that's a great idea, and I think that's something we should formalise.
Yeah. And you know, as we're bringing in a bigger team, you know, it's just been kind of us originally to do this. You know, operations managers, very, very new, marketing, etc. I think there's going to be a lot more ability for us to do that type of thing, and it's a great comment.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. As a small team, it's like everything's just been between us, and there's been conversations we just have sitting next to each other talking about things. It's processes, and this comes from Tristian's experience, in particular, growing GoGet from I don't know how many people it was, but you know, to 100 people when you left. He's very familiar with the idea of bringing processes on board and making sure you do that properly from the start. So
and it's very hard even at the beginning of Go. You can't do everything. You know, you basically do the best you possibly can with what you've got, and then as you grow, even at GoGet, we could have far more influence over, you know, council policies and all sorts of things in terms of, you know how, you know, roads are built, whatever infrastructure, getting on panels with ministers, etc. When the company is big enough to be listened to, and I think that, you know, we will have the same kind of experience as we grow this business.
Yeah.
How big is the team at the moment? Like, you know, packing flowers, there's obviously you three. We've heard about an operations manager, a head of marketing. Overall, in the Floraly family at the moment, operationally wise, who's in the team?
We've got 7 full-time staff and about up to 20 packers.
Yeah, it depends on the day. Like Monday would have a lot of packed people coming in, you know, and slightly less on a Tuesday, lots on Friday. So yes, so that it can be up to that number.
Yeah, awesome. And it's really interesting having a look at the Q&A coming through. There's some questions and comments coming through about, you know, partnering with flower growers who have got sustainable employment practices, or, you know, making sure that people along your supply chain are adhering to those sort of sustainability and ethics values that you guys are talking about. I think one of the really great things about doing a crowdsource funding round is that, you know, your team will grow with these investors that come on board. And in previous campaigns that we've run, I know that many companies put together an investor advisory panel where they, you know, have feedback sessions and ideation sessions with the people who have invested in the company, even if they've only invested $200 in the company. But, you know, obviously they want to hear those people's inputs and
absolutely.
Yeah, and it's often your best, you know, some of the best advice you get comes from your customers as well. You know, well, you know, I certainly we used to have customers come in to test stuff and give us advice on how we can make it more convenient for them. And I think that's something that, you know, we should be doing going forward, because it's very useful. Yeah.
A question's come through about COVID. Do you anticipate a downturn when sort of the COVID restrictions ease? And how do you plan to manage that if that occurs?
Yeah, I think, it's a great question. You know, and I think potentially there will be a slight change and dip or whatever, but we are heading actually into Christmas, which is our busiest period. So I think that will cover some of that. We were growing fast anyway. So we'd seen huge growth before COVID. We brought on, like we said, a new marketing person. We've got some of our ads really humming, and our PPC conversions and stuff like that have just been really good. So we were experiencing great growth. COVID came along and helped, you know, increase that to an extent. But for me, I think we're a high growth company anyway. And so if there's a slight dip, we'll soon be right back where we were. So.
Yeah, fantastic. A question has actually come through again about the investors in the company. What do you guys expect from your investors in this company, big and small, through this crowdsource funding raise? What sort of involvement would you like to have in the company? How often do you think you'll be updating them on the performance of the company? I know, you know, by the crowdsource funding regulations, you need to be providing an annual report every year anyway to your investors. But otherwise than that, have you had any thought about how you're hoping to engage, hopefully, the hundreds of people that want to invest in this company, great and small?
I think everyone's different. I think it's a big part of this is up to the investors. You know, I mean, there's obviously like a limit to how many times a day we can talk to people. We won't be spend the time running the business, but some investors, you know, want frequent updates and some don't. So I think we have to kind of figure that out with them as they join the business.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, you know, we're happy to engage and to get advice. Obviously, we can't spend our whole time. We have 700 investors or something, you know, doing, you know, responding. But I think it's great to bring investors along and to provide them, you know, like we say, with annual reporting and as much information that we can. And hopefully they'll help us too in terms of giving us advice on our business, things they like, things they don't.
Exactly. And connections and network and product suggestions. I think the more we engage our investors, the more we might
and I'm guessing, a fair few of our investors will be our customers, and we,
hear from us all the time.
Yeah, we hear from them all the time, and we talk to them all the time, and and I think you've always got to be listening to your customers, otherwise you're not going to create a great business that they want to buy from.
I've had a few questions about the marketing and the growth of the company, and then I think I might move to some of our final questions around the more nitty-gritties of the capital raise, what you're looking to raise, share price, things like that, if you can reveal that to us at this time.
Yep.
A few questions gone through about the marketing. So I might just condense a few questions into one and then bundle up. So one person has said they've seen a lot of your ads online, and yet the online marketing for flowers seems very competitive. How commercially viable are your online marketing growth efforts? And is that where you're seeing most of your traffic and your customers come from? How do you plan to grow your marketing strategy in the coming years?
I can tell you the stats on traffic. This is our highest growth period where we were spending the most on ads. About more than 60% of our purchases were just through organic search. Wow. That's just either return customers or a word of mouth or people just searching for us. And that was when we were spending the absolute most on advertising. We've never run, because we've been profitable the whole time, we've never run ads at a loss. I know that's a very popular kind of startup-y thing to do, to just acquire huge customer bases. We haven't needed to do that. I think our brand and the people we target and the way we do it, meshes quite well and resonates quite well. And so we've always had a positive return on investment with all of the ads we've run, actually.
Yeah. I think moving forward, Jamie, our head of marketing, has a strong content background and wants to invest heavily in a content strategy. We'll be doing more brand building activities, more marketing activities that are not online. We'll move into offline marketing as well.
And also, I think the SEO side, we've been investing in that so far. And, it's had a bit more of a long tail, but we are investing in that and growing the ability for people to find us organically through great content, and obviously optimization of our web.
I think as a broader kind of behavioural commentary, you're right that a lot of people do, go out to Google, for example, and search for flowers they want to send them. I think building a really fantastic brand, like we are trying to do, the point of that is to stop people every single time going, I want to send flowers, who should I send them with? But instead to really embed in their minds and make it as easy as possible for them to go, I want to send a gift, I'll just use Floraly. And there's a lot you can do about reinforcing that message. Part of it, as Tristian mentioned, is getting an app, for example, makes that physically convenient for them to just reorder straight away without thinking. Ultimately, our goal is to not rely on the big search engines like Google and ad spaces like Facebook's one. Instead, to just kind of build that a return customer base that keeps coming back to us and make that part of the process as easy as possible.
And already about 20% of our customers are repeat customers. So we have a very loyal customer base that.
And that's in a short period, because it can be a long, could even be higher.
Yeah, some of those people are ordering 5, 6, 10 times.
Exactly. When we're 8, 9 times bigger than we were a year ago,
we have a lot of new customers as well.
Exactly. So we're constantly putting them in. So for any point in time, 20% of our customers be return customers when we're growing this fast. I think it's something we're really proud of.
Yeah, and it's really important to increase that lifetime value of our customers. We're really focused on that, and that's all about the experience, the app, the kind of gifting partner stuff, so that the value of each customer is increased by the fact that it's a great experience and they always come back.
Because that's the thing, buying gifts is stressful if you don't know what to get. And
yeah, it is. Buying gifts is stressful,
yeah, it can be really stressful, exactly. And I think if you make it easy and fun, well, you're not going to go anywhere else. And that's really the basis of our business, is really great products, affordable and really easy to use and bring joy to the people that you send them to. It's a winner.
The final question I have for the audience, and before I hop into things like minimum and maximum targets, what the process is to invest and basically what happens from here, is any challenges you see in the business in the next 12 months?
Yeah, I just think moving into state always presents its operational challenges. I think we're very confident, having brought on board Matt with his operational background, that we feel a lot more confident now that he'll be able to implement that expansion. But obviously, that's still a risk.
I think we've experienced challenges recently as well, just with the huge growth of the space, all of this. But it's just how you deal with that. So foresee challenges just like that again as we go to Melbourne, getting the right people, making sure that we can provide the same level of quality when we're not actually right there all the time. It's a challenge, but I think it's something that we've already seen so much of that in this growth period. I feel we're really ready to kind of handle whatever comes our way. So
I think like another thing, just with growth in general, a challenge that we'll find, because values mean so much to us, we really need to find a way that we can continue to impart those values to every person we bring on board. I suspect our team will be significantly larger than it is now in 12 months. And we need to make sure that we're constantly, how do we say this, consciously creating a culture that really matters to us as a business, rather than letting the culture of our company just be what it is. I think for us, we really want to make sure we're curating that and keeping those values dear to our heart. So that's a challenge. It's hard to do as we scale, but it's something that we're aware of. And I think by thinking about it constantly, that's kind of the best way to enact it.
Yeah. And look, I mean, part of the offer document as well is that you'll have a risk section where you'll be detailing the foreseen risks that will be in the business, and a little bit how that will impact the operations as well. So investors will be able to see that when it is available. I just want to hop into our last 3 minutes for those listening in terms of what happens next in the Birchal process with the Floraly team. And basically how you can go about and complete your investment. Floraly, the last question I have for you before I do hop into that is, what is the minimum amount that you are looking to raise in this round? And what's, ideally, if you had all the goodwill in the world, what would be the maximum you're looking to raise? Obviously, I know you probably can't go into too much detail yet because we're still waiting for more of those results to come in. But, just from today, what's your... Sorry, my housemate's yelling. What's your goal for this capital raise?
I think the min is probably somewhere around the $200,000 mark, and then the max is, I think we said somewhere around the $1 million mark.
That would be the max.
Yeah, fantastic. And then that's the thing. I mean, that money is going towards, these new distribution centres, the growth that you're talking about, and it's really for the next sort of 6 to 12 months, I believe, in the business. And then it may be a case that, you're already profitable, you're already growing already at a pretty rapid pace anyway. You may come back for more capital, you may not. So that's really exciting that you have that choice of how this company grows.
Yeah, I think this is kind of general comment on startups and scalable companies. Companies that are fast growing and can use capital growth, they're not every startup. It's not every company that needs that. You really need to analyze at every point in your company's growth and life cycle. Like, if you put this capital into something like marketing, what will the return be? Because there are points at which it is worthwhile doing that, and there are points at which it's not. So for us, we really need to continue to assess that at every stage of our life cycle, and decide in a year from now whether we need to fundraise or whether we don't. And that's going to totally depend upon the benefits to our business at that point in time. Yeah, we'll figure it out. So.
Amazing. And do you know what the minimum parcel size you're looking at for people to invest? Is it $50, $100, $150, or will that be revealed more so closer to the
fully?
Yeah, I don't think we have a number on that yet, but it'll be quite low.
It will be low. Yeah, it will be small because we want our customers, if they would like to have the opportunity.
Fantastic.
All of them. So, yeah.
Well, for everyone listening in, the next steps in this process, the Floraly EOI is still open for a few more days, which is really exciting. Basically, if you express interest to invest in Floraly, you'll be on the investor waitlist, which basically means you'll be the first people to see this offer when it opens. We have been having lots of instances on the Birchal platform recently where entire campaigns are actually being fully subscribed just from the expression of interest list alone, and they don't actually go out to the broader public. So I do, if you're really keen to be the first to see those terms and to invest in Floraly when it opens, get your name on that expression of interest list. You're not compelled to invest, but being on that list means that you will be the first to see the offer terms. When it comes to the investment offer campaign on the Birchal platform, as I mentioned before, you'll get access to the Floraly offer document, company constitution and subscription agreement. I'm seeing lots of questions that have come through. I can promise you almost every single one of those questions will be answered in the offer document, and you may even get a little sneak peek of a draft before it goes live, but the Floraly team will be in contact with you about that if that is so. When it comes to the investment process on the Birchal platform, it is a 7-step investment process. You will need to have a form of ID, so we can check your identity to accept your investment, and a payment method ready at the time of your investment, whether that is direct debit or bank transfer. You basically hop into the Birchal platform, you go and complete your investment application. Once we have confirmed your application, we wait till the Floraly team have passed what will be their minimum target of their campaign, and then we start to process payments there. Once those payments are processed, then we'll get into the settlement of your shares where you will receive your share certificate. So if you've got any questions about that, please reach out to the Birchal team and we can send you through a bit more instructions in terms of how that works. But there will also be email communications coming from both Floraly and from Birchal ahead of this round opening about what to do and what you'll need in order to invest. The other thing I'd like to note is that if you are looking to invest more than $10,000 in this deal, because we're under crowdsource funding rules, you'll need to provide evidence of wholesale status in the form of an accountant certificate. So if you want to invest on day one, you need to have your accountant certificate ready to go. So that's something to have a bit of a look at. But if you've got more questions on that, then as I said before, we'll be putting the Floraly contact details and the Birchal contact details in our follow-up emails. So if you've got any questions, just reach out to us and we'll be able to help you with going through this process. But guys, I mean, I think that might just leave us there. I've saved all these questions, which I'll send to you afterwards. So if you'd like to reach out to anyone, you're very welcome to do so. But thank you everyone so much for joining us on today's session. I had a lot of fun. It's really fascinating business, an incredible industry, and really, really exciting where you guys are going. So I might just pass it over to you to wrap up and we'll say goodbye to everyone.
Well, thanks very much for your time. Is all I can say. If you've got other questions, we'll try and reach out to you as soon as we can to answer those. But thanks for
Really
having
appreciate
us.
it. Really appreciate it.
No dramas. All right, guys. Thanks so much. Have a wonderful, wonderful Tuesday.
Ciao, guys.
Ciao.
See ya.